All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Aware Athlete Show. I am your host, Scott Forrester, and today our subject is how you can use hypnosis to change your life. So our guest today is Botkin. Bill is a hypnotherapist, but he's previously had a 25-year career in and around state government and as an activist and a lobbyist. And during that time, he got an opportunity, interestingly, to experience firsthand the inner workings of the health system. And so Norman has two books, Take Charge of Your Cancer and Mastermind, Master Life. So obviously, we've all had some defining moments in our life, and some defining moments that Norman has had are what led him to write his first book. So since our subject is how you can use hypnosis to change your life, and you did not start out as a hypnotherapist, could you give us just a brief background on some defining moments and how you got into hypnotherapy and what it means to you?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up on a ranch, and it was a wonderful, amazing childhood. But I was bored with school, and I joined the Marine Corps for a little adventure. and I got out of the Marine Corps. I worked in the oil fields, and then when the price of oil goes down, they shutter the wells, and so you got to find something else to do. So that I went to work in a rock plant, making little rocks out of big rocks, and like Fred Flintstone. And then I was as a construction lineman. I built cable TV, and then one of my first aside from moving from the city to the country, one of my first major defining moments came when I was 24. My brother was killed in a car accident, and kind of woke me up. He was pre-med, and he really had to work hard at school, and I never had to work at any job. I've been winging it at a high level my whole life, and so I ditched what I was doing, moved in with my mom, and walked onto a community college campus of 25,000 in San Diego County, and was on fire. I was in a hurry. I was on my way to law school. I did speech and debate, student government, and still knocked out the associate degree in a year and a half. And then I transferred to university. I went to Sac State, where the government is. And so, I thought it would be impacted, but it wasn't. Doesn't everybody who wants to do poli-sci go to where the government is? So within the first semester, I had a job as a clerk in the state assembly. And actually, it was an internship that I turned into a job, and that started a 25-year career. And so I went from clerk to consultant. I was a committee consultant for the health committee and the insurance committee. Then I was hired by the Medical Association to lobby on behalf of the 30,000 physicians in California. And I did that for a few years, and then I hung up my own shingle and began to practice as a contract lobbyist. I represented petroleum, automotive, energy.
Yeah. So your background, you already knew about petroleum.
I'd worked in the oil fields, and it turns out I came across guys I knew from years before. And they had gone from roustabout to, higher up in their companies and whatnot. And I had gone from the same to, a whole different deal. But it was interesting to come across some old Kern County friends. But,
one thing that's interesting there is we're talking about changing your life. How many times you reinvented yourself?
It's a long life, and I just feel so fortunate that I've been given so many opportunities, and that I really have lived. I mean, from the military to a roustabout to a lineman. I used to say that world looks up to linemen, and to a certain extent they do. And, we couldn't turn our switches on and without them. But yeah. So then another defining moment. I got sick. I had cancer, and interestingly, it was in my throat chakra. I had papillary carcinoma, which was thyroid cancer. I spoke for others. I didn't have my authentic voice. I couldn't write a letter to the editor and express my opinion because it might reflect poorly on my clients. My clients don't want me to be, in the news. They want me to elevate them, right? And so I energetically, the throat chakra was blocked, and that was another defining moment because the cancer changed everything. Initially, I followed allopathic medicine. I let them cut out my organ and some lymph nodes, and so I had a radical thyroidectomy and a lymph node dissection, and I had a round of radiation, and then I tried to get back to quote normal, right? And so it took a little while, but I came to realize that it was that normal that made me sick. I love the public policy, I love the strategy, but politics is dirty, and the things you have to do to, it just,
So if we explored the conflict that was going on within you when you went to work every day.
Yeah.
Well, what was that like?
Well, like I said, I love the policy. I loved, and so I represented the California Independent Petroleum Association. It was small oil against big oil. I represented the automotive aftermarket. It was small auto against the big car makers, right? And I'm often in these conflicts with these, and the legislature was kind of the mediator when we would all go and try and change the law and then it was, the aftermarket against the car companies, or it was little oil against big oil, or I represented the energy service providers who emerged after restructuring at the turn of the last century. I love saying that, right? At the turn of the last century, there was this meltdown after what they call restructuring. And I had the little guys who all they wanted to do was serve happy customers because the monopoly utilities had, there is no customer service from the monopoly utilities. It's like, take it or leave it, right? And so, but they got swept up in this whole thing. They were made out to be the bad guys, swindling Grandma Millie, and so anyway, my clients were in high dollar industries, but they were the underdogs. So, but they were also at the same time, they're the dinosaurs. They're not the golden children of wind and solar and electric cars. And, these are the darlings of a liberal state that I lived in. Right. And so, I was not the darling. And so it was tough. It was, I worked really, really hard to make a super solid argument, and I would lose because people had either a more favorable industry or more money. And so it was challenging because I wanted to give value to my clients. I wanted to bring value. And so I worked super hard, and we would still lose sometimes. And so that was difficult. So, and then of course I didn't have my own voice, and I had spoke for others. And so energetically, as I've come to learn, because I've gone through this whole spiritual awakening over the last 10 years, I now understand energy, and I've opened to my gifts. I didn't realize that I was always sensitive, and I always had these gifts, but being Claire Augustus, as a Marine, like, or a clairaudience, hearing, sensing, seeing these things from the subtle realm, it didn't comport with the machismo world that I was living in, whether it's riding rodeo or working in the oil fields or being a Marine. And so that was another thing that contributed to my illness, was a rejection of, or a misunderstanding of, my subtle gifts that are more left side, more feminine, more yin energy than yang. I had plenty of yang energy, so anyway, these defining moments, I wanted to write a book about my cancer experience. I learned about the power of the subconscious mind. I learned about myself. Teachers began to appear. I had a friend who got out of politics and opened a yoga studio. She took me through therapeutic yoga for cancer and Pilates to regain my strength, because I had been radiated and I was emaciated, and the thyroid controls everything. And so my metabolism, I was whipsawed between hypo and hyper and up and down and radiation and all these things. And so I regained my strength. I learned about Ayurveda and my dosha, my constitution, and how to eat for my dosha. If you haven't guessed it, if you know anything about Ayurveda, I'm a pitta, I'm fire, And so I learned all of these things about myself, and teachers began to appear, and my spiritual awakening began. I tried really hard to write my book, and I've written analyses and political speeches. People paid me to write for them. But when it's you and it's your experience, it was hard. I tried really hard And so I got a coach. I went through the author incubator program, and I got the book written in 90 days after I'd struggled for 3 years. And I wanted to call it The Unwrapped Gift.
Yeah.
And because much like my brother's death, and there was some guilt associated with that, but I changed my life. And his death woke me up, and I experienced this whole 25-year career, going from a kid in Kern County to, someone of an elite few who owned a lobbying firm in California, which is a nation state, right? So, but my publisher said, Norm, cancer probably was a gift for you, but how long did it take you to figure that out? And I'm like, yeah, it was a few years. So she said, you got to meet people where they are. And if you want to help them when they're in it, they're not thinking cancer is a gift. So it's written toward men who don't go to the hospital. They don't go to the doctor. Like women have an annual, and they're more oriented toward medical stuff. Guys are like, rub some dirt on it, like the 3-week rule. If it doesn't go away in 3 weeks, I'll talk to somebody about it. And that they don't bode well, because if you ignore, cancer is a signal. It's a signal, and you've got to hear, and you've got to understand what the message of the cancer is. The message for me was, get the hell out of politics. It's not for you. Your ego is outsized, and you're in a toxic environment. And if you continue, you'll die. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Message received. But what do I do with myself? And so then the new journey began, and to remake myself in a different way, and in so doing, to get out of that old, well-worn path, to escape the outsized ego that I had. I raced Porsches. I had $1,000 Italian suits, and I mean, it's just, you get wrapped up in all of that, and the big house, the fast cars, the ego, and so.
So in other words, there is never any going back to the old normal.
No, there's no going back. People ask me, well, why don't you go be a lobbyist again? I'm like, are you kidding? Never. I've outgrown it. It's all a bit sophomoric, if you ask me now. It's a juvenile. It's a game that they play, and with people's lives and money and livelihoods. And I'm in the service now of people instead of politicians and corporations. I'm in the service of others, and that's why I came here. That's my sole mission. I work 65, 70 hours a week, and it's not like work. I see people from 8 to 8 or longer, because I'm never going to let the calendar be the reason why. And people come in, they say they want change, and the conscious mind says, yeah, you need change. And the subconscious mind says, wait a minute, whoa. And so they'll make up all kinds of excuses. Oh, I can't make it then. Well, it's okay. I'm here till 8 p.m., 9 if you need me to. I'll never let the calendar be the reason why they don't get help.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead and universalize this a little bit. So I think you were in a particular job, but I because of the way we are as human beings, because of the way our culture is, I think there are hardly any jobs that don't have that strong conflict between either I can't be my own voice, I have to do something I don't fully agree with, or I'm just involved in a situation that's not me. So can you say a few words about how that's a universal problem with our culture, and with exploring and growing as a human being even? Because obviously we start off as children. What do? We're totally dependent on someone else, and the self-agency aspect, the desire to change habits that don't serve, that's not there. What we're doing is we're learning to survive our situation the best we can, and we must give away a lot of our authority to someone else, and so that's the juvenile state, the infant state. So if we see, I was the kid at work for so long, and then all of a sudden I was 70. And then so obviously you realize life isn't what it was. It's not going to go on forever. And so can you give us a little bit about, first of all, how this is a universal spiritual journey that we have? You already have, but
Yeah.
so I think everybody has something they want to change or some way in which they want to grow. And that's what you're all about. That's what you just said, actually.
Well, that's right. So, let's start at the beginning. Humans have a disproportionately large head when they're born. Other animals are up and running around within hours of birth.
Yeah.
It's a couple of years before we can make our way around. And so our survival depends on identifying with our captors.
Yes.
So we're living a de facto Stockholm syndrome. Some of us have it easier than others, but we learn at an early age that we have to cooperate. Our survival requires a level of cooperation, and so some of us are better prepared for it than others, and we're cast into the society where we have to. It's basically the archetype of the prostitute. You exchange time for money, or skill for money. And I used to I thought that was great as a kid. I sat on the boulevard with my truck stacked up with firewood that I had cut and chopped and stacked. And some guy would come along and ask me, "Is it a cord?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's 15 more to stack it." But I was a junior enterpriser from an early age. And later when I came to find out that, that whole transactional thing is the archetype of the prostitute, I was a little uncomfortable by it, but we are all forced to trade our time for money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't give it any forethought, you said you woke up and one day you're 70. Well, high school goes quickly. And if you haven't prepared, then, college is elusive. And now you got to go be making money at a time when, technology is displacing the trades. And if you don't, it's challenging to know where to go. And then there are those who do go on the college track and it's expensive. And then you graduate with debt, and now you're digging your way out. And so, setting goals and being inwardly directed is super important. No matter what stage of life, we all ride the carousel, right? And so identifying what stage of life you're in and being inwardly directed. So being quiet and still, and ask yourself, turn off the television, shut out the relatives, sit down and be quiet and still, and ask your higher self, what do I want? Why do I want it? And what am I prepared to do to get it? Those three questions, if you're honest, like I said, I've been winging it at a very high level my whole life. And at 55, I sat down and did that. And I've begun to focus, and it's paid dividends, because I'm so richly rewarded by what I'm doing now that it's a crime that I didn't know this sooner, but I couldn't get here until I had done all of that. But
that's right.
Again, right. So I can't change anything, or I'm not the guy I am today. But you've asked for some advice, and what do you say to someone? So the advice is, what do I want? Why do I want it? What am I going to do to get it? And then be quiet and still. It's like shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. Go clear and be quiet. And prayer is when we talk to the divine. Meditation is when we receive information. And so being quiet and still, asking, what do I want? Why do I want? And what am I going to do to get it? And then just know yourself and who you are authentically, beyond a reason of a doubt, beyond a shadow of doubt. And it's that inner peace that will project. You see, control of the outer world is illusion. It's our inner world that we can control, and that's it. Now, we can project ourselves on the outer world once we're super solid and we know who we are.
Yeah.
Right. And so getting really clear on who we are and what we want will allow us then to project ourselves. Instead of a leaf on the stream, now we can project ourselves into the outer world.
Right. So actually that touches on something that I think is so fundamental. I'll give the other side of it. I think the trade of the prostitute is actually a fair characterization of how we have to live. But there's a reason for that. I'll give the other side real quick, is that there's another saying, all work is honorable to a point. And so it is, it really is. But the other thing is, our culture is and has to be, and we live a physical life. We think we do, at least. We see what's around us. I mean, to us, it's a physical life in a physical body. And in our culture, we live a physical life, and we are sold a physical bill of goods every time we listen to an ad. And with a ridiculous anthropomorphic concept thrown onto an automobile. An automobile is sexy.
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, that's where every human being is. We live a physical life. But as I look outside, and I live in Oregon. I grew up in California, but I live in Oregon, and there's a particular color to the Central Oregon sky. And it's a kind of a pale blue, but a piercing, deep, beautiful blue. And so here we are living in a physical world, but it hints at, in fact, even more than hints at, you open your eyes here around where I live. And every day I go outside and I say, God, I can't believe it. I was out here yesterday, but it's so beautiful. And you just forget. And that is only a tiny example of how the things that we see, the things that are made, are only actually give us a little bit of a doorway, a little bit of insight into the things that we can't see. And so you're talking about the invisible world there. And I think that is 100% why we have difficulties, why we maybe don't reach our potential, or why we struggle for this and that, because we don't see the wonderful realities behind the physical. We think they're physical objects. And I like to say that climate change is not the biggest problem we face. What's the biggest problem we face is that we don't know how to cooperate. And that's the case because we don't see the invisible world. We have all that ego, that I that we start with. And so we see the physical world, and we need to get some of it, and we want to get some of it. And then there's politics and greed and power and a lack of listening even to ourselves. So you said all these things. And but I think that's so fundamental, because if you want to do more, you've got to see beyond the physical. So what's beyond the physical? It's not just unicorns and rainbows. It is actually character, joy, thankfulness, self-discipline, listening. Those are all things that are beyond the obvious or the physical that we all live in. So I don't know. Did I sum up what you're saying a little bit? Or
Oh yeah. I mean, Platonic idealism, knowing something for its sake and not for the sake of something else.
yeah,
Beauty among them, chief among them. But the Buddha said, the problem is you think you have time. And so, but they also, in Buddhism, suffering, there is suffering. It's the first of the Four Noble Truths.
right.
And the second noble truth is suffering arises. And it arises out of a feeling of lack, feeling like I need something, fear of missing out, or I don't have the best car or the nicest house. And the third noble truth is the cessation of suffering. And so it's through education and turning away from things. And the fourth noble truth is that you break the cycle of suffering and reach nirvana when you have fully reached the ability to cease suffering. And so much of this is our grasping at things outside of ourselves. So to carry your summation forward, when you are so sure of who you are and what you're about, no person's ill words or bad behavior can affect you. I call it unfrequentable. and I've changed the middle part of that to be clean for your audience, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Beyond being messed with. But it comes down to us and who we're prepared to be. Viktor Frankl was a survivor of a Nazi concentration camp, and he was a psychiatrist, and he made notes and sewed them into his clothing about why people survived and, who survived and why. And he created this whole theory of logotherapy afterwards, and he wrote the book Mankind's Search for Meaning. But one of his famous quotes is that there's a space between stimulus and response, between action and reaction, and in that space lies your power, because you get to choose what kind of human being you're going to show up as. And so I take that and I add to that the Course in Miracles, 3-volume set by these psychologists who dared to bring the divine into the conversation about human behavior. And they equate God and love, and that God, love, energy resides in our heart space, and that is our birthright. And when we come from a place of love, it gives rise to all positive emotions. Its opposite is fear, which gives rise to all negative emotions. In any moment, you can choose love or fear. It's your choice. That's the space in which your power lies. And before you react, before you have diarrhea of the mouth or say or do something in an automatic way, which is never good, by the way, automatic is never good. Occupy the space in which your power lies. Decide you're going to show up as a human being with love in your heart, and it will change your whole world. Now, when I say show up as a human being with love in your heart, I don't mean be a doormat. I can lovingly express my boundaries and tell you to, hey, brother, piss off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, doesn't mean allow transgressions. It means show up with love and lovingly exercise your boundaries. But the opposite is fear. And we are seeing pervasive fear right now. There is mass hypnosis. There is fear. Fear sells. If it bleeds, it leads. Turn off your television. They're scaring you. There's fear porn. There's all of these things and what it does is our attention is immediately drawn to it. And now you're suggestible. Now it's hypnosis. It's hypnosis.
Yeah. So everything is perception with us human beings. And so let's make a journey into how we mainly live in a state of hypnosis one way or another.
Absolutely. The indigenous healers from time immemorial used trance.
Yeah.
They did primitive surgeries using trance. Trance makes people suggestible. So when you're driving home from work and you end up in the driveway and don't remember the trip, you were in hypnosis. It's called highway hypnosis. Radio drive time is expensive on the radio because people are tranced out in their car driving home. So that's expensive airtime, right? So you can choose. Whenever there's someone queued up, I'm going in the other direction. Like wherever there's a crowd, that clam chowder can't be that good at Pismo Beach. And if it is, I'll try it on the shoulders of the rush, but when the herd is always good. Humans, anthropomorphic humans, small groups, not large groups. The hive mind is not human-like. And you're easily manipulated if you're in a crowd. And we all know there's studies, there's all kinds of, studies that have been done on group. People ask me, were the Germans hypnotized? Yes. I mean, here's 3 things for hypnosis: authority, a doctrine or a paradigm, and you have to feel something. So, for me, I know hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And you're going to sit in my chair and I'm going to be the authority. Okay. That's just the way it's got to work. And the doctrine or paradigm is the schooling that I got. And will you feel something? Yes. You'll feel very, very relaxed, among other things. Now let's look at a couple of other things that aren't so obvious. Lab coat and stethoscope, medical books and medical education. Do you feel something when you go to the doctor? Not a good place to have your blood pressure taken. Or you can get good news from the test results or bad news. Like you feel something when you go to the doctor. That's a hypnotic modality. That is a belief system. The White Collar or Skull Cap or Frock, The Good Book, any one of them. The Quran, the Torah, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't matter. Do you feel something when you're in mosque, temple, or church? Absolutely. People sing, they dance, they feel moved. That's a hypnotic modality. So these are just the most obvious ones. So in Germany, the Führer and it's not, National Socialism and the fervor with which the German people marched in the streets, it's super obvious. All right. But let's look at another one. Doctors Fauci and Birx, immunology and epidemiology. And do you feel something? There's a lot of people who are afraid right now. So there's a psychologist making the rounds right now who's explaining the theory of mass formation, and we're under its spell right now. So it's super important. Again, back to our inner world and being so sure of ourselves that the crowd doesn't move us.
Yeah. So how are we hypnotized by our own habits?
Well, the autonomic nervous system is run by the subconscious mind. You ask any 5-year-old who's ever tried to commit suicide by holding their breath, right? The involuntary muscles and processes are all run by the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind wants to bring you back to homeostasis. 98.6 after a fever, whatever your resting heart rate is after exertion, it's all bringing you back to what's normal for you, homeostasis, all right? And so the same thing from the psychological aspect as the physiological aspect, the subconscious mind wants to bring you back to homeostasis. From 0 to 8 years old, you're in hypnosis and your programming is laid down as if it were your iOS. This is your operating system. You mirror and match those who are in your sphere of influence, and that becomes your programming against which you measure everything that comes into your experience the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so you lay down this well-worn path, and the conscious mind that you think is in control, that's the tip of the iceberg, about 5% of the subconscious activity as logic, reason, analysis, decision-making, and willpower. The problem is the 95% is that involuntary stuff that you laid down in your operating system from 0 to 8. And so it's going to measure, the conscious mind measures using sensory data that's pulled in through your 5 senses, and it's going to measure whatever that stimulus is against your programming, and it either accepts it or it rejects it with a monumental rationalization. I'll give you the simplest example. You weren't born liking cigarettes, but you know what? That the label on the package says the Surgeon General says it's going to kill you. But you know what? Aunt Sally smoked 2 packs a day and she lived till she was 95, and I was going to die anyway, And so we come up with these rationalizations and keep puffing away, even though we know it's killing ourselves, right? So the same thing that allows us to not have to learn how to ride a bike or shift a manual transmission is the same thing that keeps us in these well-worn paths. So too is it the thing that makes the athlete athletic. Practice, 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 practice. What do you think is going on there? That's the subconscious mind. A musician, an athlete, anyone who's good at something has done a repetitive activity until they get really good at it. And it's the subconscious mind that is at the heart of that talent and that athleticism. And so it's the same thing that keeps us stuck in a rut.
Yeah. So how do you change your life? Well, to me, maybe confidence has 2 aspects. One is the courage to say, maybe I will change something. And that's a certain type of confidence. And then since I think it's a process, the other type of confidence is what you get through experiencing more and more of that change. And you can do it.
Sure. I mean, I started skiing when I was 7. When snowboards came along, it was interesting, but I was a double black diamond skier by that time. And there was no way I was going to flop around in the snow like a beginner again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just get better at skiing and watch the others. And besides, they were laying down in the track and everything. I'm like, who is this fool? Get up and lay down over there. but I didn't want to look the fool. Right. And so,
right.
So courage, to your point, the courage to, number one, recognize that change would better you. And number two, to suffer through the initial,
Yeah,
right?
there it is. So we're not after no pain, no gain. We're after, I could be comfortable with a little discomfort.
Well, so the lobster is a soft-bodied, hard-shelled animal. And the body grows and gets super uncomfortable inside that shell. And
Yeah.
discomfort signals change. So it crawls under a rock and sheds that shell and grows a new one.
Yeah.
If that lobster went to a doctor and got some pills and didn't experience that discomfort, it would never grow into a new shell.
Right.
How's that for torturing the metaphor?
Yeah. 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 So why don't we throw out a terrible concept that culturally we have of hypnosis. Why don't we just get rid of that one? Because there is an entertainment mode of hypnosis where you put somebody on the stage and make them do something silly.
Yeah.
Where we take our wonderful complex human nervous system and then we just use it for entertainment, which is fine because maybe you want to be entertained. But if that's your whole concept of what we're capable of,
pretty sad.
We just want to get rid of that. Yeah. I mean, we want to get rid of the limiting aspect of that entertainment definition of hypnotherapy or hypnosis, because it's nothing more than being silly or willing to entertain for a moment.
Yeah. I have colleagues who I went through school with who do stage hypnosis. It makes me really uncomfortable because I have a medical emphasis to mine, and I've helped people overcome tragic, terrible stuff and get their lives back. So making a mockery of it, it strikes to the heart of, my legitimacy. And so I know why they do it. It's for entertainment and it's to show just how powerful it is. But most people's introduction to hypnosis is Vegas style showmanship or the county fair. And it's unfortunate, but it comes from the history of it, which is, until recently, it was largely anecdotal. Someone said, I changed. Well, prove it. Well, I'm telling you, I did that before and I don't do it anymore. And evidence-based community science said, well, it probably has more to do with the personality of the hypnotizer than any real stuff that's going on. But now,
goes way back, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was in King Louis the 14th, the 15th, 16th, whatever. Ben Franklin was on the panel that investigated Franz Mesmer, mesmerizing, and so they discredited it in the 18th century or 19th century, 18th century, because they couldn't explain what was going on. So now we have functional MRIs. Now we have CT scans. Now we have ways to measure the brain. Now we have brilliant research being done by Dr. David Spiegel and others at Stanford. Now we have the United Kingdom doing all. And if you go to Google Scholar, there are volumes of research articles written on the efficacy of hypnotherapy for things like irritable bowel syndrome, cancer, and the pain associated with cancer, and just numerous. I've done autoimmune stuff with people who suffered, and all the doctors could do is give them pain pills. No one asked them what was going on in your life when it started. That's the first thing I ask, because here's what we do. We somatize our emotional pain. If we can't manage our emotional pain, we somatize it into our body. And there are all kinds of body syndromes, unexplained back pain, you're carrying the weight of the world. Unexplained leg pain, you can't run away from your problems. Unexplained arm pain, you can't fight your way out of something. Those are the most obvious ones. But the same thing that made me a really good analyst and consultant and lobbyist makes me a good therapist. I dig and I connect dots and I match patterns and I ask a lot of questions. You mentioned earlier listening. We have two ears and one mouth. I used to be a big talker. I'm a good talker, but now I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell me how to help them.
Yeah, there's no substitute for listening.
Yeah.
In fact, Dr. Feldenkrais, I don't know if you've heard of him.
I haven't.
You haven't?
Good.
Well, Moshe Feldenkrais, the originator of the Feldenkrais method, In his book, in his classic book, 1972, Awareness for Movement, he was actually mentioning what you said there, that the space between a stimulus and our response, that is the space where awareness dwells, where we have, that is the only space really where we have an opportunity to use free will and live intentionally instead of, and see if you can even find that space during the day, it's pretty cool. and nobody lives.
Yeah, I try and occupy it frequently. I've extinguished most of my ego. The little bit of ego I have left is how can I help you in as few sessions as possible? Like I really, so, and I got some tough clients right now, a woman almost 50 who's not ovulating any longer, wants to become pregnant with her egg. And I'm like, well, first you must assume an egg, right? So, I love helping people, and I'm always the last resort. They've all tried everything else. Everyone comes to me having tried everything, and I'm attracting a lot of psychologists right now as clients that they've tried all of their training and everything, and they help others, and they're having a really hard time applying it to themselves. And so so occupying that space and showing up with love, I practice it.
Yeah.
It's what allows me, like the first time I got a super difficult, complicated case of women in her 70s who had mast cell disease and Lyme disease and couldn't leave the house and, couldn't visit her. And she was, and I'm like, before I took that session, I'm sitting here, what on earth can I say or do? And I racked my brain. I went through my training. I went through old videos of Dr. Kappas of, what would Dr. Kappas do? And I sat quiet and still. And it came to me. It came to me to ask her, to press her hard for what was going on. And it turns out she was racked with guilt over an affair she had, and she never connected those dots. And she was Catholic. And I said, did you ask the priest for forgiveness? Did you ask God? Yes. I'm like, did you ever forgive yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it came to me. I didn't know she was Catholic. I just was quiet and still. And I asked the divine for guidance on how to help this person. And I don't know if it was who it was or my higher self or whatever, but in that space came my power. I didn't think I knew everything. I asked for help.
Yeah.
That thing about, what you mentioned is like, how do we get out of that rut? Well, if you don't ask, the answer's always no. So in that ethereal world, in that subtle energetic field just beyond our perception, we have guides, we have helpers, we have ourselves in the multiverse. There are so many, and we're moving from Pisces and the material world and Newtonian mechanics into Aquarius. It's the energy field, quantum field, and it's a more feminine energy. It's subtle and it's creative and collaborative and cooperative. And the sooner we learn that and learn emotional intelligence, the better we're going to treat each other, and the more open to solutions that are not in conflict with others, the better this world is going to be. We're on the cusp. Again, it's so funny. Like there's an energetic connection here. I thought this transition between Pisces and Aquarius was going to be rainbows and unicorns. And instead it's plate tectonics. It's a subduction zone where the old guard it's ugly. Look how ugly it is. They're destroying themselves. Women politicians try and outman the men. Like run as your subtle gifts as a woman and watch how popular you become. Stop trying to be a man. Look at our institutions are dying. Education and medicine, they are on the verge of death the way they're operating right now. Hollywood, professional sports, like all of it is on the verge of crumbling. And certainly our politics and our government, it's 300 years almost of amazing living documents that have carried us longer than any democracy. But if we we got 2.0 coming, and I'm not sure what it looks like or who's going to be who is it going to be that leads us out of this mess that we're in right now? Because you can't keep trying to solve the same problems with the same thinking that got you into them. And so we're observing massive change. And so all of us must, the way we transcend the fear of the three-dimensional world and ascend into the fourth and fifth dimension is to bring love and compassion into our heart space. This is how we transcend and ascend. And when enough of us, when we reach critical mass to carry the totality of humanity across this imaginary Maginot line, right? That real change. And it's exciting. I'm excited for my kids. I'm a little afraid right now because we're in that transition period. You know, transitions are always fraught with danger. But I know that it's my children who are going to carry it. And it's the greatest generation that was my parents. My dad was in World War II. We just have lived this incrementalism along the way. You know, it's been comfortable and incremental. And, you know, from 45 to 95, when the internet changed everything, was just this super comfortable optimism, a little better than, you know, the generation before. And now we're in that plate tectonic zone, and the unicorns and rainbows are just on the edge, on the leading edge of this mess we're in right now, which is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree. Again, going back to Moshe Feldenkrais. Now he would probably use slightly different terminology. He was a scientist, and he expressed things in some ways that would agree with his scientific thinking to make him comfortable. But he believed that, and well, I'm sure this is true, that the greatest gift that humans have is a greater ability towards awareness than other creatures on the earth, and awareness, self-awareness. And he thought that eventually awareness would spread throughout the earth and make a huge difference. He was saying the same thing you're saying in a little different language.
Yeah.
But he was very hopeful, I think.
Well, so, you know, and I don't disagree with him. Science has turned into religion.
Yes, I know.
It's very dogmatic. It's very dogmatic, and it's less scientific than it's ever been. I saw, you know, a meme from a scientist said, "Trust the science? We don't trust anyone, least of which each other."
Yeah.
You know, that's.
And, there are scientists that would not think well of other scientists who actually integrated the fields of philosophy and science, or direct life benefit, and, you know, with their.
Well, look, you know, we've become like I was a chief defender of capitalism and the American way, and the ability, and, you know, the incentive to look how many times I've remade myself. You know what I mean? It's like this society, the mobility that's available to those in this society. People come here from all over the world, and so I was a staunch defender of it. But greed has taken over.
Yeah,
greed is you know, scientists. No one pays for a study that doesn't support the funder. Like, you know what I mean?
For the most part, yeah.
Nobody's doing any independent science.
Yeah.
Not since George Lord Byron and Mary Shelley.
Yeah. Okay.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And so it's, anyway, I choose to see that we're on the verge of greatness, of awareness. So in that regard, we would agree that awareness is the thing that will elevate us all. And it begins with self-awareness, and then it extrapolates to the awareness of the subtleties around us. But look, the measure by which we understand that we're in this change, the quantum field is opening. So when scientists asked if matter was the same as light, having a dual nature, both a particle and a wave, they conducted experiments on subatomic matter. And when they tried to see if it was a particle, it acted like a particle. When they tried to see if it was a wave, it acted like a wave, giving rise to the observer effect. We are able to influence matter. That's how powerful we are.
And time even.
And time, we can warp time. That's the fourth dimension is time. Was, we're
Even some of those experiments, it didn't matter where you tried to measure.
non-local.
Yeah.
That's right. So two bits of matter can operate on each other irrespective of time and space.
So there's another couple things that I think would really be good. And that the first is self-agency. And so, you have a practice as a hypnotherapist, but all therapy, I've read your book, all hypnosis is actually self-hypnosis. Go ahead and take off on that, because I think we can do no greater good in helping someone, if we can help them, than to lead them into their own self-agency, their own control of their own life.
Well, that's right. And that's what got us into the problem we're in now, is that we're turning over our control to others. And so,
yeah, that's the mass.
He said, she said, the government, the Rona, I mean, everyone is pointing fingers at the outside world, at exigencies, at things that are outside of ourselves. When we take responsibility for ourselves, when we bring love into our heart space and say, I'm responsible for me, it's that self-agency. And that's when we shut out the hypnotic influences of the outside world. You march to your own drum. And so let's not call it hypnosis. Let's call it self-actualization.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every good athlete does a walkthrough.
Yeah. My emphasis is very broad with my brand, The Aware Athlete. I won't go into that now, but it's very, very universally broad. But every athlete, I do like rigorous outdoor activities. But every athlete, yeah, you have to have an inward capacity to do things well.
And is life not the ultimate sport? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Sport is a metaphor for life. Yeah.
Yes. So you can, you prepare and you self-actualize and you visualize and you manifest.
Right.
You don't need to read the book, The Secret, or watch the movie, The Secret, to understand, my girlfriend and I do a vision board every year. I'm more intentional now than I've ever been in my life. What do I want? Why do I want it? What am I going to do to get it? My son and my daughter, we got together last year, and my son put straight A's on, and he was amazed when he got straight A's. I'm like, why are you amazed? Didn't you put it on your vision board?
Yeah. And
so if we take responsibility instead of assigning blame for why we didn't, but look what it's the easy way out, right? It's why people hang on to, like, when I try and help people get better, I have to understand there's a thing called secondary gain, and they hold on to these things as an excuse. I helped a black hole scientist client. She hated her mom and dad for the trouble. They split up and they fought and she blamed, and she went through the rebellious period, and she was holding on. I said, when you hate someone, who does it hurt?
Yeah.
It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. And I said, you will never achieve your dream of breaking new ground in black hole science as long as you have them to blame.
Yeah, it takes too much away. You can never be in that neutral place, that place between stimulus and response, if you're already responding.
Exactly. She had the greatest epiphany. My heart soared when I got through to her. And her life
cool, because I spent 10 years in physical therapy as a PT, physical therapist assistant, and Feldenkrais practitioner and personal trainer and all of that. But that does warm your heart when you can actually see somebody made some progress on something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Had an aha moment.
Yeah. Well, I played ice hockey, and I'm an extreme skier, so I've been under the torture of you and your friends. But no, with physical therapy, shoulders and knees, and
that was one of my main conflicts in life. The Feldenkrais method is completely different from just doing physical therapy and pulling on somebody as hard as you can so you can write in the note that they got two degrees more flexion or extension, and
Yeah.
it's completely different. It's
Yeah, I broke my wrist, both the radius and the ulna, and they usually do external fixation, and they didn't. I got plate and screws, but in order to get pronation and supination, it required a lot, and I had a great physical therapist, and so I joke, but they're real you guys can be some real sadists.
well, that's what PT stands for: physical torture or pain torture.
Yeah.
But that's not my emphasis. It's torture.
I understand. I'm just having a good time with you.
Yeah. Self-actualization. Yeah, that's what you really want for people.
Well, I do teach the self-hypnosis, and I'll give your listeners right now how, the way you go about it.
Okay.
And it's really, don't make it any more difficult. I believe in Occam's razor. The simple solution is always the best, right? And so make it very simple. And you go to a quiet, undisturbed place, light a candle if you like. If not, sit quiet and still, and close your eyes and imagine a staircase. You can make it as wonderful or beautiful or plain as you like it. It could be a wood, oak, or mahogany with a white marble with a plush wool runner, or maybe it's a series of stones set in, down a mountain trail where it makes itself into a nice little staircase. And there's 10 steps. And with each step, you go deeper into relaxation. You just close your eyes, take 3 slow, deep breaths, and envision this staircase. And with each step, just take yourself deeper into relaxation. Count yourself down: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At the bottom of the stairs, imagine now a nice little meadow, and there's a big tree, and under the tree is a bench, and just have a seat in the bench. And to your surprise, you're not alone there. There's someone there. I don't know, is it a hero or someone from your life you look up to? Perhaps it's your higher self, and just have a conversation about what's going on and what you might need some help with, and just listen and see what kind of answers they might have for you, and just be quiet and still for a while. And after sufficient time that you might have received some information, then you can just walk yourself back up that staircase, reversing it, going back up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, wide awake. And so it was a shortened version because of our time here. But if you follow that pattern and record yourself saying the things I just said, and then play it back for yourself, slow it way down, have a little tone in the background, a little woo-woo, not spoken word, just a tone. I have some fun stuff. There's a Native American drum beat, a crackling fire or something. Create the scene. Talk yourself down the staircase. Imagine, perhaps it's not a meadow with a tree. Perhaps it's a beach and the negative ions and the salty smell and the cool breeze in your face, and engage your senses. And really, we're all suggestible to ourselves. And so if you record yourself with a scenario of descending into comfort and relaxation, engaging with someone you might look up to, your higher self or a hero, giving yourself time to sit and absorb, and then bring yourself back up. You can record that and play it back to yourself. I promise you, you will have positive experience from it.
Yeah, it was very pleasant as it was.
Yeah.
So self-agency. There's one more thing. Somebody just wrote a blog, kind of an acquaintance friend of mine. I can't say I know her really well, but she's spoken enough that I do feel like I know her. But she asked the question, what if? So I think that would be a good, if you're an athlete, which sounds silly in comparison to some things, but if you're an athlete or if you're a person with a question to ask or an issue to resolve or anything, what about the question, what if? What if? What could I do if? I think that's a powerful place to leave it. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's a sacred contemplation. And what if we could transcend ourselves? What if we could transcend the noise around us and be the best we can be. You know, there's a quote by Mother Teresa, you know, people, you know, if you're honest, they may cheat you, be honest anyway. And she goes through a litany of things, you know, you may give your best and it may not be enough, give your best anyway.
Yeah.
What if we showed up every day and we're the best us we could be?
Yeah. See that due to living in our culture, we talk about being the best we could be, and we're going to say we weren't. But we were. We did everything we could do under the circumstances that day. That really was good.
Well,
So,
that's right. Let's, you know, define, well, you know, have another look at how you define the best we can be. I'll
the
tell
best
you,
we can be. Yeah.
I want to be the best me.
Yeah.
And I define the best me as showing up with love in my heart space,
Yeah.
and having only kind words for my fellow human beings, because at 12 and 13, as we step into puberty and our little personality forms, we learn separation. And it's, you know, it's necessary to find our place in the world. But if we don't come back to the notion that we're all connected, if I say to you, get a haircut, like, it's just going to come back right on me. You know what I mean? It's so don't ever think that your outward interaction isn't going to reflect immediately on you. Right. And so what if we could live as if we're all one?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Wow. That is way out there from where the world is now. Yeah. Not a new thought, but a wonderful one.
I love what ifs. And we could spend another hour. I could keep coming at you with them, but
yeah. I appreciate it. So, Norman, thank you so much for the conversation. I know that it's going to be pretty easy to get a hold of you, if I'm correct, because I think your website is normanplotkin.com.
That's it. I'm the brand, and I'm on social media. All of them are of some form or another. Norman Plotkin Inc., Norman Plotkin CHT. I'm on IG, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, with a growing presence. I'm not quite influencer status yet, but I'm here to evangelize the hypnotherapy and how powerful it is. It's simple, it's deceptive in its simplicity, and it has the power to help you be the best you can be.